As our cities reopen and we eagerly reunite with our favorite masterpieces, we might experience an even deeper appreciation for some of history's most treasured artists, because like those who weathered infamous pandemics such as the bubonic plague and the Spanish flu, we too are navigating the upheaval of a menacing health crisis. So today, we're considering 5 celebrated painters who lived through, succumbed to, and found inspiration in times of illness. This is listed by several circles. Edvard Munch's The Scream echoes through art history to this day and headlines a sizable body of work by the famed Norwegian expressionist, though he created the first iteration of his best-known motif in 1893, decades before the onset of the 1918 pandemic otherwise known as the Spanish flu. Munch was afflicted by so much illness that it would become the very linchpin of his creative output. He endured harrowing, lifelong mental and emotional disturbance, surely exacerbated by the early loss of his mother and beloved sister to tuberculosis. But it was Munch's unflinching embrace of anguish that fueled his emotive, gestural style, and which subsequently positioned him as a founding father of the expressionist movement. Munch contracted the Spanish flu and painted a self-portrait during his infection, followed by another after he fortuitously recovered from the disease that took an estimated 50 million lives around the world. Despite the torment of constant suffering, sickness was to Munch as a rudder is to a ship. "My sufferings are indistinguishable from me," he wrote, "and their destruction would destroy my art." Munch died at age 80 in 1944. A protege of the great Gustav Klimt, Egon Shiele pioneered Austrian Expressionism and conjured untold artistic impact within his brief 28-year life. Shiele sketched and painted moody landscapes and chilling figurative works, including numerous gaunt self-portraits in which he physically and psychologically strips himself to the core. Like his mentor, Shiele also amassed a portfolio of erotic depictions, though their salacious nature resulted in a reputation for immoral conduct, especially given that many of his models were children. And yet, Shiele enjoyed considerable success for the honest intensity of his aesthetic. In 1915, at the age of 25, Shiele married a woman by the name of Edith Harms. In 1918, he began painting The Family, an unfinished piece illustrating the young couple with their unborn child. 6 months into her pregnancy, Harms died from the Spanish flu. Shiele died from the same cause only 3 days later, leaving the family incomplete in more ways than one. Even amongst the old masters, Rembrandt van Rijn reigns supreme. His dramatic portraiture exemplifies the curiosity and illumination of the Dutch Golden Age, a regional renaissance that roughly spanned the 17th century. So it's staggering to think that when the artist died at age 63 in 1669, he was so impoverished that he was buried in an unmarked grave. Rembrandt isn't believed to have died from the plague, but he was certainly one of its innumerable victims. After his first wife, Saskia van Eulenburg, died of presumed tuberculosis in 1642, Rembrandt ignited what appears to have been a meaningful, albeit frowned-upon partnership with his housekeeper, Hendrike Stoffels. Their relationship prompted several of Rembrandt's principal patrons to drop him, and he went completely bankrupt in short order. Then Stoffels died from the plague in 1663, a monumental loss that still resonates in Rembrandt's subsequent work. His beloved and only surviving son, Titus, was another likely casualty of the plague come 1668, and so Rembrandt's final years were marked by grief, loneliness, and destitution, though his misfortunes prompted a visceral honesty by which he created some of his most liberated paintings. New York City was but a canvas for the incomparable Keith Haring, whose exuberant figures, barking dogs, and wailing babies remain icons of activism. Taking stylistic cues from the city's thriving 80s graffiti culture, Haring warned against drug use, promoted peace, and advocated for the awareness of and action against AIDS, which cost a 31-year-old Haring his life in 1990. At the epicenter of the East Village art scene in its heyday, Haring associated with the likes of Jean-Michel Basquiat and Andy Warhol, and used his cachet to spread urgent political messages within the local community and beyond. A year before his death, Haring established the Keith Haring Foundation, which remains an invaluable resource for HIV and AIDS education and research. Tiziano Vecellio, better known as Titian, was perhaps the greatest painter in 16th century Venice. His contributions ran the gamut from religious and mythological imagery to portraiture and landscapes. and he was internationally renowned as an artist of consummate skill. At the end of his life, Titian began an exquisite painting of the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus Christ. He's believed to have started the Pieta circa 1575, the same year that Venice was ravaged by another onset of the plague. Titian was already elderly by this time, so we can surmise that he started this piece with some intuition that his death was imminent. Unfortunately, he was right. The artist died in 1576 before the Pieta was complete. Titian painted the Pieta to adorn his own tomb, and it's generally agreed that the old man cradling Christ's hand is a self-portrait, likely disguised as the biblical Nicodemus. The painting was finished by the Venetian artist Palma il Giovanni. Thanks for watching Several Circles. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos about the lives and work of extraordinary artists from across history to the present day.